Welcome back to Miss Corrigan's Year 8 Maths class. Today's lesson is to help you get ready for exercise 10b, circumference. Okay, you've probably heard the word circumference before. For those of you who haven't, circumference basically means the perimeter of a circle. Remembering that the definition of a perimeter is the outside lines or sides of an object. In this case, there's just one side that goes around the circle. That's the circumference. If you want to figure out what the circumference of a circle is, you need to use a value called pi, which is represented by this funny symbol here, multiplied by the diameter, which goes right across the circle, a line cutting right across the circle, and it passes through the middle of the circle, and that's the diameter. Okay, pi has a very specific value. You can see here that I've written it in a slightly longer format, 3.141592655. We don't normally go to that level of detail. We normally either round it off to 3.14 or we use a special pi button on our calculators to get accuracy. So how did mathematicians come up with this value? Well, they realized that the relationship between the circumference and the diameter was nearly always the same. They nearly always found that the circumference was just a little bit more than 3 times the length of the diameter, which is how they came up with this value. Okay, sometimes you'll need to use this formula. Circumference equals 2 times pi times r. In this case we're using r instead of d. R stands for the radius, which is this line here on a circle, and it runs from the center of the circle to the outside. This means that 2 radiuses, there's one there and there's one there, will fit in a diameter. So we can also use 2 pi r, or you can just use pi times the diameter. Okay, I'm going to pick through a couple of questions from the book to help you guys out with doing these sums. And the first question I'm going to look at is question 1b. Question 1b gives us a circle, circle with a diameter of 10 centimeters. Now, whenever you're doing these questions, you should draw the shape in your book and then do your working out underneath, just like I'm about to do. Now, it wants you to find the answer in 2 ways. It wants you to find the answer in terms of pi, and it wants you to find the answer to 2 decimal places. So let's do that. What we're going to do is we're going to write out the formula for finding out the circumference of the circle, and the formula is circumference equals pi times diameter. In this case the diameter is 10, so we're doing pi times 10 centimeters. Now the book wants us to answer in terms of pi, so we really can't do much with that. We just got to rewrite it so it looks like this: 10 times pi with our units at the end, centimeters. That's all we have to do for that. For the second one, we do actually have to find the answer. So again, we write out our formula. Always start with your formula. Just make sure that you're doing the right thing. And then when I look at it in a test or something, I can see that you've chosen the right formula and haven't made a mistake. And again, we're using pi, but this time we're using 3.14 because we're able to push it into our calculator. We don't have to leave it in terms of pi, times 10. Now the answer I get is, I've just plugged it into the calculator quickly, is 31.415926, so on and so forth. Now how many places did the question want the answer to? It wanted it to 2 decimal places. So that means I have to cut it off here. If we look at the number after my cutoff, we can see that it's a 5. And if I've got a 5, it means I've got to round the number up. So my answer will actually be 31.42 centimeters for the circumference. Okay, let's try it with just a radius now. Again, I'm going to do the B question. So I'm looking at question 2b, and we have a circle with a radius of 17 millimeters. Again, it wants two answers. It wants the answers in terms of pi and correct to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's do part 1 first. Let's get it in terms of pi. I will start by writing out my formula. Because we're working with a radius, our formula is circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. So it's 2 times pi times 17 millimeters. 2 times 17 is 34, so it's 34 pi millimeters. And that's our solution for that one. Okay, let's have a look at the other version. We still use the same formula. We're still using circumference equals 2 pi r. So it's 2 times pi times 17 millimeters. But when we plug it into the calculator, I get this value, 106.81415, and so on and so forth. Okay, now I can't use all those values. I have to cut off the 2 decimal places. So I've got to cut it off right there. I'll look at the number after my cutoff and it's a 4. So that means I round down and my answer will be 106.81 millimeters. Okay, as you work further into the exercise, you start to come across questions like 4b, which will have semicircles or quarter circles or 3/4 circles. Maybe something like this, a semicircle with a diameter, oh no, pardon me, got a little dot there and an arrow showing that I've got a 16 millimeter radius. Now it's asking me to find the perimeter. Okay, let's look at what we have. Obviously we have a semicircle, so we have half a circumference and this line here, and this side and that side add up together to make the perimeter. So let's work it out. Let's start with the circumference. The circumference of that full circle would be 2 times pi times r, which would be 2 times pi times 16. Okay, I've just plugged it into my calculator and I've gotten the value of 100.5309, so on and so forth. I need to round that off to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to cut it off after the 53. The number after is a 0, so I don't need to change the 3. It's just 100.53 millimeters for the whole circumference. Now this circle will only use half of that, so I need to take that value and I need to divide it by 2. So let me quickly do that on my calculator. Okay, so at the moment I've got half a circumference, which is 50.27, and I've also got this length for 1/2 of the radius and the other radius, so I need to add on 32 altogether. So let me do that. So I've got that plus 32, plugging it into my calculator, I end up with a final answer of 82.27 centimeters. Oh, not centimeters, millimeters. Okay, well you guys should be ready to do exercise 10b now. But just remember, number 1, draw pictures. Number 2, make sure your units are all the same. Number 3, make sure you include units in your answer. And if you've got funny shapes that are composite, that have straight lines and so forth, you have to include them in your perimeter, because remember the perimeter is the sum of all the outside sides around the object. Okay, Again, you can rewatch this video if you need help, or you can ask your teacher, or consult the worked examples in the book. Good luck!